There's a moment that comes without warning. You're sitting quietly, maybe looking out the window, maybe lying awake at 3 in the morning, and something shifts, not dramatically, not like a lightning bolt, more like a veil dropping that you didn't even know was there. Suddenly the arguments that used to consume you don't matter anymore. The people you were trying to prove yourself to, you can see them clearly now, not with anger, not with resentment, but with a strange, almost unbearable tenderness. You look at your own life, your mistakes, your wounds, the years you spent chasing things that were never going to fill you, and instead of shame, you feel something you weren't expecting. Compassion. A deep, quiet compassion that doesn't come from your mind, but from somewhere behind it. And if that has happened to you, even once, even for a few seconds before the noise of the world pulled you back, then pay attention. Because according to Carl Jung, you may have crossed a threshold that most people never reach in an entire lifetime. Jung described a hidden map of psychological development, stages the soul moves through as it matures. Most people get stuck early, identified with power or with the role they play, or with the image others have of them. But there is a final stage. Jung called it Sophia, the Greek word for wisdom. And it is not the kind of wisdom you find in books or clever arguments. It is the wisdom that arrives only after you've been broken open, after you sat with your shadow, after you stopped running from yourself. The Sophia stage doesn't announce itself with fireworks. It whispers. And the problem is, most people who enter it don't even recognize what's happening. They think they're just tired. They think they've become too sensitive. They think something might be wrong with them because the world that once excited them now feels thin, almost transparent, like they can see through it to something underneath. Nothing is wrong with you. Something is finally right. Today we're going to walk through 7 signs that you may have entered this stage, the final awakening that Jung considered the deepest achievement of the human soul. And I want to be honest with you, some of what you'll hear might unsettle you, not because it's frightening, but because it might describe exactly where you are right now, in a way no one has ever put into words for you before. So stay all the way through, because if your soul has brought you here, there may be a reason. Before we begin, take a moment to like this video and subscribe to the channel. And I'd really love to hear from you. Have you felt this shift? This strange softening that came without warning? Leave a comment. You might be surprised how many others share your experience. Now let's begin. Sign 1. You have stopped trying to win. Think about this for a moment. Think about how much of your life, how many years, how many conversations, how many sleepless nights were spent trying to win. Win the argument. Win the approval, win the promotion, win the relationship, win the respect of someone who probably wasn't even paying attention. There was a time when winning felt like everything, when being right was more important than being at peace, when you would replay a conversation in your head for days just to find the perfect comeback you didn't deliver, when you measured your worth by how effectively you could dominate a room, a debate, a negotiation, and then something changed. You stopped, not because you lost, not because you gave up, but because one day, in the middle of a disagreement, maybe with a partner, maybe with a colleague, maybe with a stranger on the internet, you suddenly saw the whole thing from above. You saw yourself fighting. You saw the other person fighting, and you realized that neither of you was going to get what you actually needed from this exchange. The victory you were chasing was hollow. It always had been. In Jungian psychology, this is one of the most significant markers of deep transformation. In the earlier stages of development, the ego needs to assert itself. It needs to compete, to prove, to establish territory. This is natural. This is necessary. A child must learn to say mine. An adolescent must learn to say I am. A young adult must learn to say I am. A young adult must learn to say I can. These are stages of healthy ego development, and without them, a person remains fragile, undefined, easy. But there comes a point where the ego has done its work. It has built its walls, won its battles, established its identity. And now, if growth is to continue, something else must happen. The ego must begin to soften, not collapse, not dissolve, soften, like a fist that has been clenched for 30 years, finally, slowly, opening. Jung saw this as the transition from ego consciousness to what he called the self, with a capital S. The self is not the ego. The self is the totality of who you are, conscious and unconscious, light and shadow, masculine and feminine, known and unknown. The ego is just one room in the house. The self is the entire structure, including rooms you have never entered. When you stop trying to win, it is because you have begun to sense that there is something larger than your ego operating within you. You don't need to defeat anyone because you are no longer fighting for survival. Your identity is no longer at stake in every interaction. You can let someone else be right. You can let someone else have the last word. You can walk away from a fight, not because you are weak, but because you have finally become strong enough to not need the victory. And here is what makes this so disorienting. The world doesn't understand it. The world rewards winners. The world celebrates dominance, sharpness, the ability to crush an opponent with words. So when you stop playing that game, people notice. They might think you've become passive. They might think you've lost your edge. They might even worry about you. But inside, you know the truth. You haven't lost anything. You've outgrown something. And what you outgrown is the need to prove that you exist by defeating someone else. This is the beginning of Sophia. This is wisdom not as knowledge, but as a way of being. You are no longer trying to win because you have realized, perhaps for the first time, that the game itself was never real. Sign 2. You feel a sadness that isn't depression. This one is tricky, and it is one of the most misunderstood experiences on the path of deep psychological awakening, because from the outside, it looks like something is wrong. You feel a heaviness, a tenderness, a kind of sorrow that sits in your chest and doesn't go away. It's not triggered by any specific event. You didn't lose anyone. You didn't fail at anything. Your life might actually be going well by every external measure. But there is this feeling, this quiet, persistent ache, and you can't quite name it. You might have gone to a doctor. You might have wondered if you're depressed. You might have tried to shake it off, exercise more, socialize more, stay busy. But it stays, not as a weight that crushes you, but as a presence, almost like a companion, almost like grief, except you don't know what you're grieving. Here is what Jung would say about this. You are grieving. You are grieving the loss of your illusions. Every human being builds a world of meaning around themselves. We construct stories about who we are, what matters, what life is supposed to look like. These stories sustain us for years, sometimes decades. They give us direction, purpose, motivation, but as consciousness deepens, as you begin to see more clearly, those stories start to crack, not because they were lies, but because they were incomplete. They were the map, not the territory. And now you are beginning to see the territory for the first time. This sadness is what Jung associated with the later stages of individuation. It is not pathological. It is not a disorder. It is the natural emotional response of a soul that is waking up to the full complexity of existence. You see beauty more sharply now, and that hurts. You see suffering more clearly, and that hurts too. You see how much time you spent asleep, How many years you lived on autopilot. How many moments you missed because you were too busy chasing something that turned out to be hollow. And the grief is not just for yourself. It extends outward. You look at other people, at the news, at the state of the world, and you feel it all more deeply than you used to. Not with the sharp reactivity of anxiety or outrage, but with a kind of open, tender sorrow. You watch people hurt each other, and you understand why they do it. You see the patterns, the wounds behind the cruelty, the fear behind the aggression, and that understanding doesn't make it easier. It makes it heavier, because now you can't look away. Jung spoke of the night sea journey, a term borrowed from mythology describing the descent into darkness that precedes rebirth. In many ancient stories, the hero is swallowed by a great sea creature, a whale, a serpent, a monster. They spend time in the belly of the beast in complete darkness before emerging transformed. This is not a punishment. It is a necessary passage. The darkness is not the enemy. It is the wound. And this sadness you feel, this heaviness that isn't depression, is your night sea journey. You are in the belly of something vast. You cannot see the way out yet. But something inside you, perhaps the wisest part of you, knows that you are not drowning. You are being remade. The danger is that you might try to escape it. You might try to medicate it away, distract yourself, fill the silence with noise, and some of that might be necessary for self-care. But if you can sit with this feeling, even for a few minutes a day, if you can let the sadness be there without trying to fix it, you may discover something remarkable. Beneath the grief, there is a kind of love, a love so large that it includes the suffering. A love that doesn't need things to be perfect in order to be present. That is Sophia, wisdom that has been washed in tears. And if you feel it even faintly, it means your soul is not breaking. It is breaking open, sign 3. You have begun to see your parents as people. This is one of the most quietly revolutionary shifts a human being can experience. And almost no one talks about it because it happens so gradually, so invisibly, that you might not even notice it's occurred until one day you're sitting across from your mother or your father or thinking about them, and you realize something has fundamentally changed. You used to see them as your parents, as the people who raised you, who shaped you, who gave you what they gave you and withheld what they withheld. You might have spent years grateful. You might have spent years angry. You might have spent years angry. You might have spent years in therapy unpacking the damage, naming the patterns, tracing your wounds back to their origins, and all of that was valid. All of that was necessary. But now something different is happening. You look at your mother, and you don't just see mother, you see a woman who was once young, once confused, once terrified, a woman who had her own wounds that no one tended to, a woman who married someone she may not have fully understood, who raised children with tools that were handed to her by people who had even fewer tools, who did her best inside a life that was probably much harder and much lonelier than she ever let you see. And your father? You look at him and you don't just see father. You see a man who was taught to suppress his feelings, who was told that strength meant silence, who carried burdens he never named, who showed love in the only ways he knew how, which might have been working overtime or fixing things around the house, or simply being there even when he had no idea what to say. This shift is not about excusing harm. If your parents hurt you, that hurt is real. If they were neglectful or cruel or absent, your pain is legitimate. Nothing about this stage asks you to deny what happened or to pretend that everything is fine. What changes is the lens. You'll begin to see them not through the eyes of the wounded child, but through the eyes of someone who has done enough inner work to hold two truths at once. They failed you in certain ways, and they were also suffering in ways you couldn't see at the time. Jung wrote extensively about the parental imago, the internalized image of the parent that lives in the psyche long after childhood has ended. This image is never fully accurate. It is colored by projection, by need, by the child's limited understanding. A child cannot comprehend the full complexity of an adult life, and so the parent becomes a symbol, either a god or a monster, a protector or a betrayer, a source of comfort or a source of pain. In the Sophia stage, the parental imago begins to dissolve, not violently, not through confrontation, but through a quiet, almost imperceptible deepening of vision. The projections fall away, and what remains is a person, flawed, finite, struggling, doing what they could with what they had. And when this happens, something inside you unlocks, because as long as you see your parents as gods or monsters, you remain a child in relation to them. You remain defined by what they did or didn't do. But the moment you see them as people, you become free. Not free from the relationship, but free within it. You can love them without needing them to be perfect. You can forgive them without needing them to apologize. You can carry the wound without being consumed by it. This is not emotional bypassing. This is integration. This is the psyche maturing to the point where it can hold complexity, where it can see the full picture, where it can grieve what was lost and still honor what was given. And there is often a moment, quiet and unremarkable from the outside, when this shift becomes real. Maybe you're at a family dinner. Maybe you're on the phone. Maybe you're looking at an old photograph, and suddenly you see it. The tiredness in your father's eyes that you never noticed. The way your mother's hands shake slightly when she's nervous. The small, almost invisible signs of a life lived under pressure, under expectation, under the weight of responsibilities that no one fully prepared them for. And in that moment you feel something enormous, not pity, something deeper, recognition. You recognize them as fellow travelers in the same human experience, and your heart, the one that has been clenched around old pain for years, opens just a little more. That opening is Sophia at work. It is the wisdom that comes from seeing clearly, without the filters of childhood, without the armor of resentment, without the desperate need for things to have been different. It is seeing what is, and loving it anyway, not because it was good, but because it was real. Sign 4. Paradox no longer disturbs you. There was a time when you needed things to make sense, when you needed clear answers, firm boundaries, definitive truths, when the world had to be organized into categories, right and wrong, good and evil, true and false, black and white. And that time served you well. It gave you structure. It gave you something to stand on. In a chaotic world, having clear lines made you feel safe, and safety was what you needed most. But now those lines are blurring, and instead of panic, you feel something unexpected, relief. You are beginning to hold paradox. And this is one of the most reliable signs that your psyche has entered the Sophia stage. What does it mean to hold paradox? It means you can look at a situation and see that two contradictory things are true at the same time, and instead of needing to resolve the contradiction, you let it stand. You can love someone deeply and know they are not right for you. You can believe in your path and be uncertain about where it leads. You can feel grief and gratitude in the same breath. You can be strong and vulnerable, wise and confused, complete and still becoming. Jung called this the tension of opposites, and he considered it one of the most important dynamics in the psyche. He observed that the unconscious mind naturally operates in polarities. Every quality has its shadow. Every light casts darkness. Every truth contains its opposite. And the ego, in its need for order, spends enormous energy trying to choose one side and suppress the other. But the self, the deeper center of being that Jung described, does not choose sides. It holds them both. It is the point of balance between all polarities. And when a person begins to access the self, something shifts in how they experience the world. The need for certainty loosens. The compulsion to resolve every tension fades, and in its place, something more spacious appears, a kind of inner room that is large enough to contain contradiction. Think about how rare this is. Most of the world is screaming at you to pick a side. Every argument, every headline, every debate assumes that one perspective is right and the other is wrong. And the mind that is still operating primarily from ego will feel compelled to choose. It will feel anxious in the face of ambiguity. It will need to land somewhere definitive in order to feel safe. But you've noticed something. You can sit with not knowing. You can hold two perspectives without needing to destroy one of them. You can say, I don't have the answer, and instead of feeling weak, you feel honest, free even. This is a profound shift, and it affects everything. Your relationships change because you stop trying to make other people fit into your categories. You allow them to be complex, inconsistent, human. Your relationship with yourself changes because you stop trying to resolve your own contradictions. You allow yourself to be someone who is simultaneously brave and afraid, generous and selfish, evolving and stuck. And perhaps most importantly, your relationship with life itself changes. You stop demanding that it makes sense. You begin to appreciate the mystery, not as a puzzle to be solved, but as something to be experienced, something that deepens the more you stop trying to flatten it into a single explanation. Jung saw this capacity as essential to the later stages of individuation. He wrote that the meeting of opposites is the birthplace of new consciousness. When you can hold light and dark together without choosing, something new emerges, something that is neither light nor dark, but something beyond both. And that something beyond, that third thing born from the tension, is wisdom. It is the wisdom that knows life is not a problem to be solved, but a reality to be inhabited. It is the wisdom that doesn't need to win the argument because it can see the truth on both sides. It is the wisdom that can stand in the rain and feel both the cold and the beauty simultaneously without needing to decide which one is more real. This is Sophia, not the wisdom of answers, but the wisdom of answers, but the wisdom of presence. The ability to be fully here, in the mess, in the ambiguity, in the gorgeous, heartbreaking, unresolvable paradox of being alive. Sign 5. You are drawn to silence in a way you can't explain. Something has shifted in your relationship with noise. And by noise, I don't just mean sound. I mean the noise of constant stimulation, constant input, constant demand for your attention. The feeds, the headlines, the opinions, the content, the chatter, the endless stream of voices telling you what to think, what to feel, what to feed. There was a time when all of that felt normal, when you could scroll for hours and not feel anything in particular, when you could have the television on in the background while cooking and feel nothing but a mild, comfortable numbness, when silence felt empty, even threatening, something to be avoided, something to fill. But now silence feels like water to someone who has been walking through a desert. You crave it. You seek it out. You find yourself turning off the radio in the car and just driving. Sitting in a room with no music, no screen, no input, walking without headphones, lying awake at night, and instead of reaching for your phone, just breathing, feeling the darkness around you, letting it hold you. And the strange thing is, in that silence, you are not bored. You are not lonely. You are more present than you have ever been, as if the silence has a texture, a density, a warmth, as if it is not the absence of something, but the presence of something what forgotten existed. Jung understood this. He spent long periods of his life in deliberate solitude, particularly during the years he recorded in what would later become the Red Book. During those years, he withdrew from much of his public life. He sat with himself. He let the images rise from his unconscious. He painted them, wrote them, spoke to them. He treated the inner world with the same seriousness that most people reserve for the outer world. And what he discovered in that silence was not emptiness, it was fullness, a richness of inner life that most people never access because they are too distracted, too afraid, too addicted to external stimulation to ever sit still long enough to hear what is speaking beneath the surface. In the Sophia stage, silence becomes a spiritual practice even if you don't call it that. You are not withdrawing because you are afraid of the world. You are withdrawing because you have begun to hear something in the quiet, a voice, a knowing, a presence that has always been there but was drowned out by the noise of your earlier life. This is what the mystics have always described, not silence as deprivation, but silence as revelation. The moment you stop talking, stop consuming, stop performing, something else begins to speak. And it speaks not in words, but in feelings, in images, in a kind of direct knowing that bypasses the analytical mind entirely. You might have noticed this in small ways, a moment of sudden clarity while sitting alone, a feeling of deep rightness that comes without any logical explanation, an intuition that turns out to be accurate in ways your conscious mind could never have calculated. These are not coincidences. These are the communications of the deeper self, and they require silence to be heard. Jung believed that the unconscious is not just a storage room for repressed memories. It is a living, creative intelligence that is constantly producing material, constantly offering guidance, constantly trying to bring the psyche into balance. But this guidance can only come through when the ego quiets down, when the mind stops its restless chatter, when you create a space, even a small one, for something other than your own thoughts to enter. And this is why people in the Sophia stage are so drawn to silence, not as an escape, not as avoidance, but as a homecoming. They have discovered that the deepest part of themselves lives in the quiet, and they are finally ready to listen. The world will tell you that this is unproductive, that silence is wasted time, that if you're not doing something, engaging with something, consuming something, you're falling behind. But you know better now. You know that the most important things that have ever happened to you, the deepest insights, the truest moments, the most genuine connections, happened in stillness, in the pause between words, in the breath between thoughts. Sophia lives in that breath, and the fact that you are drawn to it means you are closer to her than you think. Sign 6. You have stopped performing your healing. This one might sting a little, but stay with it because it is one of the most important signs of genuine transformation, and it is the one that almost nobody talks about. There is a phase of the healing journey, and many of you know it well, where the healing itself becomes a kind of performance. You read the books, you learned the language. You can name your attachment style, identify your inner child, map your trauma responses, articulate your boundaries with clinical precision. You post about your growth. You share your insights. You talk about your growth. You share your insights. You talk about shadow work at dinner parties. You have the vocabulary of transformation memorized. and you use it fluently. And none of that is wrong. That phase is real. It is necessary. It is how the conscious mind begins to engage with the material of the unconscious. You need the language before you can go beyond it. You need the map before you can put it down and walk the actual terrain. But there comes a point, and if you entered the Sophia stage, you may already be past it, where the performance falls away, where you stop narrating your healing and simply live it, where you no longer need to tell anyone that you've done the work, because the work has changed you at a level that is deeper than words. This is uncomfortable because the performance phase carries its own rewards. People notice. People admire your self-awareness. People affirm your growth. And the ego, clever as it is, can co-opt even the most genuine spiritual practice and turn it into another identity. I am the person who does shadow work. I am the one who has done deep inner work. I am the healed one. Jung warned about this with remarkable clarity. He observed that one of the greatest dangers on the path of individuation is inflation, the ego's tendency to absorb the experiences of the self and claim them as its own. When you have a genuine encounter with the unconscious, when the self reveals something to you, the ego can swoop in and say, I did that. I am wise. I am awakened. And suddenly, the transformation becomes a trophy. The inner work becomes an outer performance. In the Sophia stage, this inflation deflates quietly, almost embarrassingly. You look back at the things you said, the posts you shared, the way you held yourself as an authority on your own healing, and you feel a kind of gentle cringe. Not shame, just recognition. You see how the ego was still running the show even while you thought you had transcended it. And now something different is happening. The healing has gone underground. It has moved from the surface to the depths. You no longer need anyone to see it. You don't need to announce that you've forgiven your father. You just notice, one Tuesday afternoon while driving, that the thought of him no longer tightens your chest. You don't need to post about releasing an old pattern. You just realize weeks later that you haven't repeated it. The pattern simply stopped because something inside you shifted, not in a dramatic moment of breakthrough, but in the slow, steady, almost invisible way that seasons change. This is what genuine transformation looks like. It is quiet, it is private, it is so integrated into your being that it doesn't feel like an event anymore. It feels like breathing. You don't perform your breathing, you just breathe. And in the Sophia stage, healing works the same way. You might even find that you talk about it less, not because you're hiding or suppressing, but because there is less to say. The words feel too small for what has happened. The experience has moved beyond language into a kind of lived knowing that doesn't need articulation to be real. And there is a freedom in this that is almost dizzying. The freedom of not having to be anyone's idea of a healed person. The freedom of being messy, imperfect, still confused about some things, still struggling with others, and being completely at peace with that. Because the Sophia stage doesn't require perfection. It requires honesty. And the most honest thing you can do is stop performing and simply be. Jung said that the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. And who you truly are is not a performance. It is not a curated version of growth. It is the whole unedited, sometimes contradictory, always evolving reality of a human being who has had the courage to look inside and keep looking even when what they found was not what they expected. That is Sophia. Not wisdom that impresses, but wisdom that inhabits. Not healing that announces itself, but healing that has sunk so deep into the bones that it has become indistinguishable from who you are. Sign 7. You feel a strange sense of homecoming. This is the last sign. And it is perhaps the hardest to describe because it exists at the edge of language, in that space where words begin to fail and only feeling remains. You feel like you are coming home, but not to a place, not to a person, not to a memory. You are coming home to yourself. And this feeling is not dramatic. It is not ecstatic. It is not what you imagined awakening would feel like back when you first started this journey. It is quiet, almost ordinary, like recognizing your own handwriting, like hearing a song you knew as a child but hadn't thought of in decades, like walking into a room and knowing with absolute certainty that you have been here before, not in this life, but somewhere deeper. What is happening is that the fragments of your psyche are beginning to come together. The parts of you that were split off, the ones you exiled in childhood, the ones you suppressed to be acceptable, the ones you abandoned in moments of trauma, the ones you never even knew were missing, they are returning, one by one, slowly, like travelers arriving at a gathering they didn't know they were invited to. Jung called this the constellation of the self. It is the moment when the center of the personality shifts from the ego to the self. The ego doesn't disappear, it is still there, still functional, still necessary for navigating the world. But it is no longer the center. It is no longer the one making all the decisions. Something larger, something wiser, something that can see the whole picture has taken its place at the center of your being. And this shift produces a feeling that is impossible to manufacture and unmistakable when it arrives. It is the feeling of being at home in your own skin, not because everything is perfect, not because all your problems are solved, not because you have achieved something or reached some finish line, but because you are finally fully present with the totality of who you are. You are present with your light and your darkness, with your gifts and your wounds, with the things you are proud of and the things you have never told anyone, with the parts of you that are wise and the parts that are still learning, with the you that is strong and the you that sometimes cries for no reason in the shower. All of it, all of you, here, together for the first time. And the feeling is peace, not the peace of nothing happening, but the peace of everything being held. Jung wrote about this experience in several places, though always with a kind of reverent hesitation, as if he knew that words would inevitably fall short. He described it as the feeling of being contained, of living within a larger order that gives meaning to suffering, beauty to impermanence, purpose to confusion. He said it was not a belief but an experience, something that could not be argued for or against, because it was as real and as immediate as the ground beneath your feet. And here is the part that might surprise you. This homecoming does not take you out of the world. It takes you deeper into it. You don't float above the mess of life looking down with detached serenity. You walk through it. You get your hands dirty. You love and lose and fail and try again. But you do all of it from a different center. A center that holds. People in the Sophia stage often describe a strange effect. Life becomes simultaneously more vivid and more bearable. The colors are brighter. The pain is sharper. The beauty is more piercing. But all of it, the entire spectrum of human experience, is held within a container large enough to bear it. You don't need to numb yourself anymore because you are no longer afraid of being overwhelmed. Something inside you has become large enough to hold whatever comes. This is what Jung meant when he spoke of the self. Not a static state of enlightenment, not a destination you arrive at and stay, but a living, breathing center of wholeness that grows as you grow, deepens as you deepen, and holds more as you become willing to feel more. And the homecoming never really ends. It continues. Each day brings you a little closer to yourself. Each challenge reveals another corner of your being that you haven't fully explored. Each loss strips away another layer of pretense and brings you closer to what is essential. And what is essential, you are beginning to realize, was always there, waiting, patient, quiet, like a light that was never extinguished but was simply hidden behind too many closed doors. Now I want to step back and tell you something important about all 7 of these signs, because there is a danger in hearing them, and the danger is this. The ego can turn even the Sophia stage into a project. You might be sitting there right now, mentally checking off the signs. Yes, I've stopped trying to win. Yes, I feel that sadness. Yes, I hold paradox. And with each check mark, a subtle satisfaction creeps in, a sense of achievement, a feeling that you have arrived somewhere special, somewhere most people haven't reached. And the moment that happens, you have stepped out of Sophia and back into the ego. This is the cruelest paradox of the final awakening. The moment you think you've achieved it, you've lost it, because Sophia is not an achievement. It is not a level to be reached. It is not a badge to be worn. It is a way of being that exists only in the present moment, only in humility, only in the willingness to not know. Jung understood this deeply. He spent the later years of his life not as a man who had all the answers, but as a man who had learned to live with the questions. In his final interviews, he spoke not with the confidence of a master, but with the wonder of someone still discovering. When asked if he believed in God, he said, "I don't believe, I know." And that knowing was not intellectual certainty. It was experiential intimacy, the knowing of someone who has touched something real and has the honesty to admit that he cannot fully explain it. This is the posture of Sophia, not standing above life with answers, but kneeling within it with presence, not claiming wisdom, but embodying it so thoroughly that it becomes invisible, like air, like gravity, like the pulse in your wrist that you forget is there until you stop and feel for it. So if you recognize yourself in these signs, wonderful, but hold that recognition lightly. Don't build an identity around it. Don't make it another story about yourself. Let it be what it is, a quiet confirmation that something real is happening inside you, and then let it go. Return to the silence. Return to the not knowing. Return to the moment, because that is where Sophia lives, not in the recognition, but in the return. Let me also say something about time, because one of the things that happens in the Sophia stage is that your relationship with time fundamentally changes, and this might be one of the most disorienting shifts of all. For most of your life, time was linear. It moved forward. You were going somewhere. There was a past to learn from, a present to manage, and a future to aim for. Goals, milestones, timelines, deadlines. The whole structure of your life was organized around the arrow of time pointing forward and you moving along it as efficiently as possible. But now something strange is happening. Time feels different. Not slower exactly, not faster, more like fuller. Each moment has more weight, more texture, more presence. You find yourself stopping in the middle of ordinary activities, washing dishes, walking to the car, watching rain, and feeling a depth of experience that is completely out of proportion to what is actually happening. And the future, that once urgent, always pressing future, has loosened its grip on you. You still plan, you still think ahead, but the desperate urgency is gone. The feeling that you need to get somewhere, achieve something, become someone before time runs out, that has faded. And in its place is a willingness to be here, just here, in this day, in this hour, in this breath. Jung described the second half of life as a time when the psyche naturally begins to turn inward. In the first half of life, the energy moves outward toward building, achieving, establishing, creating. In the second half, whether that shift happens at 40 or 60 or even 30 for some, the energy reverses. It begins to move inward toward meaning, toward integration, toward wholeness. This doesn't mean you stop living. It means you start living differently. You start living from the inside out instead of the outside in. Your actions begin to flow from an inner sense of rightness rather than external pressure. You do things because they feel true, not because they look good. You say things because they need to be said, not because they will be applauded. And time, that relentless taskmaster that drove you through the first half of your life, becomes something else entirely. It becomes a medium, a space in which depth can unfold, a container for the slow, sacred work of becoming whole. People in the Sophia stage often say things like, "I feel like I have all the time in the world, even though I know I don't." And that is not denial. That is the experience of someone who has shifted from chronological time to what the Greeks called kairos, the deep time, the right time, the time when the soul is ripe and the moment is full. In kairos, a single conversation contained more life than a whole decade of busyness. A single afternoon of solitude can heal more than years of frantic self-improvement. A single moment of genuine presence can touch eternity. And this is not poetry. This is psychology. This is what happens when the ego relaxes its grip on time and the self begins to set the pace. There is one more thing I want to share with you, and it concerns something that Jung himself struggled with, something that the Sophia stage brings into sharp focus. It is the question of meaning. In the earlier stages of life and development, meaning is given to you. Your parents give it to you. Your culture gives it to you. Your religion, your education, your career, your relationships, they all provide a framework of meaning that tells you why you are here and what you should be doing. But as you mature, as you individuate, those given meanings begin to fall away. Not necessarily because they were wrong, but because they were given. They were someone else's answers to life's questions. And now, in the Sophia stage, you are being asked to find your own. This is terrifying, because for a period of time there is a gap. The old meanings have crumbled and the new ones haven't fully emerged. And in that gap you might feel lost. You might feel purposeless. You might look at your life and wonder what any of it was for. Jung himself went through this. In the years after his break with Freud, he experienced what he called his confrontation with the unconscious, a period of intense inner turmoil, visions and psychological upheaval that nearly broke him. He didn't know if he was going mad. He didn't know if he was going mad. He didn't know if the images flooding his mind were meaningful or pathological. He had to make a choice, perhaps the most important choice of his life. He chose to trust the process. He chose to engage with the material rather than flee from it. And what emerged from that confrontation was not just a body of psychological theory. It was a lived understanding of how meaning is created, not found, not given, created, through the conscious engagement with one's own depth, through the willingness to sit with the unknown and let it speak, through the courage to take the raw material of your own experience, your suffering, your joy, your contradictions, your failures, and weave it into a pattern that is uniquely yours. This is what Sophia offers. Not a meaning that comes from outside, but a meaning that rises from within. Not a purpose that is assigned, but a purpose that is discovered through the slow, patient, sometimes agonizing work of being honest with yourself. And the meaning that emerges is not grand. It is not dramatic. It won't make headlines or inspire envy. It is often incredibly simple. To be present, to love what is here, to tend to the small sacred things, the relationships, the daily rituals, the quiet moments of beauty that no one else will ever see. Jung, in his later years, spent much of his time at his tower in Bolingen, a simple stone structure he built with his own hands by the lake. He carved inscriptions in the stone. He cooked simple meals. He sat by the water. He did not live the life of a celebrity intellectual. He lived the life of a man who had found his center and was content to inhabit it. That is the promise of Sophia. Not a spectacular life, but a real one. Not a life free from suffering, but a life in which suffering has been alchemized into depth. Not a life without questions, but a life in which the questions themselves have become a source of richness rather than anxiety. And if you have made it this far, if you are still here, still listening, still feeling that quiet resonance in your chest, then I want you to know something. You are not lost. You are not broken. You are not behind. You are exactly where your soul needs you to be. The Sophia stage is not a destination. It is a way of walking. It is the gentleness with which you hold your own imperfections. It is the honesty with which you face your own depths. It is the courage with which you choose to be yourself in a world that is constantly asking you to be someone else. And it is happening in you right now, not tomorrow, not after one more book, one more retreat, one more breakthrough. Now, in this breath, in this moment of recognition, because Sophia was never something you had to earn. She was always there, waiting in the silence, waiting in the stillness, waiting in the stillness, waiting in the center of your being for you to stop long enough to notice. And you have stopped, and you have noticed. And that, more than anything, is the final awakening. Not a flash of light, not a moment of cosmic understanding, not a dramatic transformation that the whole world can see. Just this, a quiet return to what was always true, a gentle landing in your own being, a homecoming so soft that you almost missed it. But you didn't miss it. You're here. Welcome home. If this resonated with something inside you, something quiet and true that has been waiting to be named, then I ask you to do one thing. Don't rush to the next video. Don't immediately open another tab. Sit with this for a moment. Let it settle. Let whatever needs to move, move. And then, when you're ready, like this video, share it with someone who might need to hear it, and leave a comment. Tell me which sign you recognized in yourself. Tell me what your soul has been whispering to you, because every time one of us speaks our truth, it gives someone else permission to speak theirs. Thank you for being here. Thank you for staying all the way through. And thank you for having the courage to walk this path, even when the world told you to walk a different one. Until next time, take care of your soul. She is wiser than you know.